Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. It's Tuesday night. It's a little after 9 o'clock tonight. Sorry about that. I had a softball scrimmage that ran a little late, but here we are. We're with our Steelers family. I am Dave Schofield, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. And with me, as always, my big brother, Rich. Rich, how you doing?
Hey, Steeler fans. We're getting close. I saw people already in the live chat talking it. Yeah, we're, 9 days, I think?
Yeah. Yeah, something. I would say 9 days. Yeah, something like that. I mean, I know Thursday is 1 week, so we'll just look at it like that. Sorry, I hope y'all didn't hear that noise. I didn't realize my washing machine was running and it just kicked on. That was kind of scary. Anyway, welcome, Steelers fans. We had, well, first of all, before we get into Steelers, I just got to ask. I know you had a day of fishing. How'd it go?
It was all right. I had to work hard, but we did get some fish today. So
there you go. There you go.
I was able to get off the lake, get my fish clean, get a shower, get something to eat, and get down here and get the show rolling. So
there you go.
It's nice to see Thaddeus is here because he had told me he wasn't going to make it because he's been getting up early for turkey hunting. So
yeah, because Thaddeus fishes some of the same places you do. So while you were out on the boat, you missed some Steelers news today.
I know you were having to.
I was trying to catch you up. Got to get into it. You got to love it. I told you it was not a great day for social media as a Steelers fans because you were going to catch a bunch of extreme on both sides of the announcement that head coach Mike Tomlin was given a 3-year contract extension today. He is now under contract to be the Steelers head coach through the 2024 season. So it's interesting because those people that are not a fan of Mike Tomlin definitely don't like this. People that are a big fan of Mike Tomlin love it. And then there's other people that just don't like to hear everyone else making bad arguments. Poor Michael Beck today, man. He had them all over the place. All he did was throw out some numbers just to show that his point was, man, the Steelers have had 3 coaches since 1969. Then you're talking about going through 2024. So look at that. I mean, you're talking that's a long time. That's a really long time for only 3 coaches, all of them with winning records, combined regular season and playoffs, all of them Super Bowl champions.
That's how many years now did you say that was?
I didn't even say. So we're talking where it's 50. It'll be 55 by the time if he runs through it, right? Or it'll be no, because it included the 69 season. That would be 56. It would be It would be 56 if Tomlin goes through the remainder of his contract. Right. And who's to say it's over then?
You've got that's 3 coaches in 56 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you have teams like Cleveland that go through 6 coaches in 56 games.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So you gotta look at those kind of things. Bottom line is, let's just say this is you're gonna get my opinion. Okay. Is Mike Tomlin a perfect head coach? No, because such a thing does not exist. And that's the biggest problem I think that some Steeler fans have is that they want the perfect head coach because I'm sorry, even that guy up north, he's as close to perfect as you can get because he's the standard, but he's no perfect coach. I mean, if he was that perfect, he would have turned around that mistake on the lake when he was there. And that didn't happen. So the thing is, I had an article out today that was, of course, I had the Tomlin news, but I also had another article out today that was from a statement that I made on the preview Thursday night. So a bunch of you here that are here in the live chat with us on YouTube or Facebook, you might have been here for that. And it was the whole notion of, I was asked about Alejandro Villanueva coming back. What do I think? And I said, a problem that some Steeler fans have is that they say that the Steelers hold on for their players too long. And I don't think that's true. But that's an opinion. I'm not going to tell someone else who was adamant that they do that they're wrong. I just don't agree with you. The thing is, too many times Steelers fans compare players to their past performances rather than compare them to, are they a much better option than their other options? Like the biggest point I had in my article was Mark, and some people are like, oh yeah, you could see it with Pouncey. He was really needed to go. Really? Pouncey needed to go? Yes. He had not been playing as well the last 2 seasons as he did earlier in his career because of the style of center he is. Okay. And if you've seen him now, my goodness, you wouldn't even think he was an offensive lineman. He's thinned down so much. But the thing is, if he was not in this thin way that he is now, but if he stuck around, he is by far the best center on the Steelers roster right now, if he's still there. So don't tell me, oh, well, Pouncey needed to move on. What's the answer behind him? And then other people are going to want to say, oh, well, the Steelers should have had an answer behind him. Should they? Was it ready? I mean, I don't know. But that's what I say, is that sometimes we have a tendency with someone like Big Ben, Al Villanueva, that we want to compare them to what they've been in years past, when obviously these guys at this age are not still on the upward trajectory. So that's what's going to happen. The question is, how many good years can you still get from them, even if they're not their best years? That's what it really comes down to. And because of that,
people are upset because we weren't playing at that, Pro Bowl, all pro caliber that we were used to. That's, okay. And he would be the first to admit that he wasn't.
Yeah.
But
he's still better than the alternatives. So yeah.
But
yeah. So but sometimes I kind of feel like, even though it's coaching and whatnot, it's the same thing with Coach Tomlin. It's like, oh, the Steelers need to move on from Coach Tomlin. They just need something new and someone fresh and something. I'm like, do you think someone's going to come in and be that guy? Do you really? I mean, that's the ultimate question. But we know, we're not going to sit back and talk about Coach Tomlin making all the right decisions. We still like to say that, the Steelers don't live in their fears.
Except in the playoffs. Okay. Should they have gone for it, in my opinion, on their own 48 to start the fourth quarter? Absolutely. Okay. But then again, I still got people that they are the most frustrated that they went for the onside kick in the playoff game against Jacksonville. And I lay it all out. That was a coin flip call, and probably the better call to go for it, because they hadn't stopped the team going 3 and out the whole game. And if you execute a normal failed onside kick, you still were going to have to hold them 3 and out no matter what to get the ball back. The only question was it going to be at the 45-yard, at your own 45, or at the other team's 20? Or wait, your own 20 to their team's 45. Yeah, I know I got them backwards. I can't think of it straight. Regardless, the only reason they got the field goal out of that was because they got the penalty on the onside kick for touching it after 6 yards. And if you're going to plan for the worst case scenario, and that's why you're not going to do it, they at least tried to give themselves a shot. It wasn't the decision, it was the poor execution, which goes there. But coaches, hindsight is always 20/20. Coach Tomlin, let's just say this: he got so much overwhelming support from his players. There are players that specifically come to Pittsburgh to play with Coach Tomlin. There are players that specifically want to stay in Pittsburgh because of Coach Tomlin. You can't say, well, is that really what you want? You know what? If it gives them better players, sure. What do you think? Yeah. No, we don't want any. Yeah. We want a coach that nobody wants to come play for. Is that what we want?
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. So I'm not telling people out there that you have to be in love with Coach Tomlin. You don't. I understand. But the biggest thing I think it comes down to is I've heard so many times of, oh, well, he wasted talent. Okay. He had the killer bees and they didn't win a championship. You also know what they didn't have? They didn't have they didn't have very good defense. Okay. So you had that, but you didn't have the defense. They're like, oh, but now you have the defense. And I'm like, but you know what? You know what you don't have now? You don't have a running game. So you can't say you wasted talent when you're still trying to do it. The biggest problem I have, and I've seen other people say it in the live chat, I'm sorry if I can't quote who it was. The biggest problem I have sometimes with Coach Tomlin
is his choices of hiring and retaining coordinators.
Yeah.
So whether that's all on him or not, we'll see. But you know what? As long as he's the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, I love everything about the Pittsburgh Steelers, even though it's not perfect. So anything else you want to say about Coach Tomlin before we move on, since I've done my long monologue about this?
Hi, Coach Tomlin.
Yeah.
Go Tribe.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, with the William and Mary alma mater. So,
yeah.
Yeah, got to love it. Wish you could have met him down there. You seemed to always be one step behind, huh?
I was.
Okay. Yeah. So I am going to say one other thing. Sometimes, we talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers and how they are I say it all the time, they're the best franchise in professional sports. They are. I mean, probably because I'm such a big fan, I feel that way, but that's how I feel. They're the best franchise in professional sports. So you've got Coach Tomlin as the coach of the best franchise in professional sports. What makes them so good and what makes the expectation so high is the fact that they actually have good coaches.
Yeah.
I mean, remember all the people that wanted Cower gone because they weren't doing the best they could there at the end. And then as soon as he left, some of those same people
bring Cower back.
We need Cower back. He'll come back to coach. We need to bring him back. I still run into people that see me wearing Steelers gear and like, oh, the Steelers are never going to be anything again, but unless they can bring Cower back. I'm like, you're the same people that were complaining about it and wanted him gone when he was there. So some of you weren't, but some of you were. So, but that's that. So the big thing is with this contract, that I saw somebody say that it really goes to show. I think it was, I want to give credit where credit's due. I think it was Michael Beck that says this goes to show that Tomlin is in it for the long haul beyond Ben Roethlisberger. For those thinking that Tomlin and Colbert and Roethlisberger were all going to ride off into the sunset together, and when one was gone, they were all going to go. 3 more years with Tomlin, he's not going to sign that unless he really wants to do it. And I would be shocked if Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger would play. I mean, that's 3 years extension from this year. That's 4 more years that I just don't see that happening. So Tomlin says he's in it for the quarterback rebuild process. So good stuff. I mean, regardless, the Steelers, they've had these 3 coaches since 1969, and they're all going to end up in the Hall of Fame. End of story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So appreciate what you got when you got it, because if you could always be the mistake by the lake and dealing with that. So Rich,
right.
We've got an interesting topic tonight. It was kind of birthed by your words to me last week, both on air and off air afterwards, when, if you all didn't check it out, we did a mock draft simulation. We used the Draft Network. We did that. The live chat was chiming in, and we picked the draft. It was a pretty decent draft when you go back and look at it. Should I recap it real quick for everyone, just so we know? I've got it.
You can if you want.
I've got it saved off here. I do know that we were.
I can recap. My statements.
Okay, your statements.
I hate mock drafts.
I know. You do. The Steelers, we had them at 24, selecting running back Najee Harris from Alabama. At 55, we had Asante Samuel Jr., cornerback from Florida State. If he's available, that's a steal. In the 3rd round, pick 87, we had Cam McGrone, linebacker, Michigan. Now, disclaimer. That was before Vince Williams signed back. I still don't know if that would change that pick or not. It could, maybe not. Okay, 4th round. The 128 pick was Walker Little, tackle from Stanford. And then the 140 pick was Trey Hill, center from Georgia. After the no 5th round pick, we had a 6th round pick of Shaka Toney, edge from Penn State. Then the 7th round, 245, we had the wide receiver. I'm not even going to try to do it. Terry, from Florida State, and the tight end, Luke Farrell from Ohio State. So, and like I said, you can laugh at me all you want when the dyslexic guy can't pronounce names. And someone accused me of not knowing anything about the draft. I'm like, to do my mock draft Monday article, I have read since January hundreds of mock drafts. I've seen these names, but I'm not listening to people pronounce them. So that's why I'm not getting the pronunciation, and then the spellings are all weird. So very, very interesting with that. But after we did that, we had the mock draft that happened last night on the almost to the preview. It's not the preview. It's the hangover. That was the BTSC staff mock draft. Next week, we have the users mock draft. If you haven't checked it out, Brian's Tales from 2 a.m.
I was asked to join that mock draft last night, but do you know why I didn't?
Why's that? You hate mock drafts.
I hate mock drafts.
I wasn't able to do it either.
Kyle was asked to join the mock draft last night. You know what Kyle said?
I hate mock drafts.
No, he did not. He said,
no.
Dad, I don't know any college players. We don't watch college football because we don't. So
I don't either. And that's why I don't hear these names. But I do study everything about leading up to know what could possibly happen with the Steelers. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about the bad ones. We're going to talk about the bad mock drafts. And trust me, I've seen a ton of them. I've had to go looking for them. I've had to look for bad mock drafts in order to do my Mock Draft Monday article, just in order to get a player that I haven't already covered. Now, this past week was one that I didn't think was a bad one. I thought it was a pretty good one. But the few weeks before that, I'm like, I'm having to go some mock drafts that are doing some weird stuff. Lucky for me, I saved one player that's a possibility for the Steelers at 24 that I haven't covered that I can do for the last one on Monday. So I'm excited about that. Okay. But if you didn't catch our show last week, make sure you go do that. Of course, then some YouTube comments were like, oh, you should have drafted all these guys. I'm like, do you realize every single draft pick at the round that you are saying was off the board? Every one of them. Yeah. You know, people are like, well, why'd you take Harris over Etienne? Because Etienne was gone and Harris was there. That's why. So that was interesting. Big Bro would rather go fishing than do a mock draft.
Rather go fishing than do a mock draft.
Here's what we're going to look at tonight. We're going to look at don't trust the mock draft that ... It's funny because Michael Beck was going to basically do the same thing for his live mic this morning, but then I had to tell him, like, sorry, we called it first. And he adjusted a little bit. I gave him an idea of something else because it was some very interesting Twitter stuff that he had said. I'm like, oh, you should talk about this. And his was basically about bad Steelers takes. If you haven't checked that out, make sure you do. And we'll actually address a couple of these tonight. But we're going to start with this one. This was kind of obvious.
No, wait. I got the number one. No, I have the number one. We can end the show after I say this one.
Okay.
Don't trust a mock draft that ... was completed by the Scho Bros.
Yes, there you go. There you go. And you know what? Ours is going to fall into one of my categories too, the one that we did. It is. It actually is.
Good.
So, but here's one. This one. Don't trust a mock draft that doesn't have the 49ers with the third pick in the draft. I've seen them out there. And there've actually been some recent ones where people don't even have the picks right. We had one that someone I know completed, and they sent it and said, here are the picks. I'm like, what's wrong with your numbers? They said, what do you mean? I'm like, you don't even have the right number picks for the Steelers. You know, they have pick 128 and 140 in the fourth round, not 130 and 142. You know, they were just off. So believe it or not, they're out there. This one was kind of an easy, obvious one. Don't trust a mock draft that doesn't even have the right teams picking. Because here's where some go off. You know, the Patriots had to forfeit one of their picks this year because of something. And there's mock drafts
somewhere where they cheated.
Where they cheated. I can't even remember which cheating it was. I really can't. Just because chalk it up, you know, one of the times that they actually, you know, and it wasn't a 7th round pick, so it didn't mess up too much, shockingly. But I think it might have been a third. I think they might have had to forfeit a 3rd round pick. But there's been mock drafts that didn't have that forfeited pick, and then all the numbers are off. And I'm like, how can you realistically do this? I know you don't read them, but what would you think about if you read a mock draft that didn't even have the right teams picking where they were supposed to?
Well, I wouldn't. Technically, you can't even call that a mock draft because it's not copying what's going to take place.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because then you could be really close to the second one I was going to bring up. Because sometimes you're like, well, maybe it's because they're taking it into account trades. So here's number 2. Don't trust a mock draft that has 12 first-round trades.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen people run these. I mean, no joke. It was last year. It was something that was done on the BTSC board. They can't do it anymore because they changed it to Coral, which doesn't allow it. Which not that does allow it, but would just totally stink at it like it does with everything else. But let's not go there. Yeah, that they were running this, and no joke. And the guy that was running it for us from the Steelers was just like, no, they were trading picks for players. No, I mean, they got to the 3rd round and not one team was actually making the pick they were scheduled to make. They were all trading, like the Chiefs were trading away Damian Williams for a 4th round pick. You know what I mean? And just random stuff like that. And it's just like, this isn't even, if you're putting this out there for people's information, this doesn't give you any good information. I mean, if you think there might be a trade or two and you want to say, I think Denver could move up to 4 to get a quarterback or something like that.
It's like a fantasy mock draft.
Yeah. But I've seen them, no joke, that you look at the first 20 picks and half of them aren't even that team because they say it's going to be a trade. And it's just, and I'm like, this isn't a mock draft. This is just messing around, having a good time. Because to me, if I read a mock draft, I'm looking at it for information. I don't know about you. You don't read them, right?
I don't read them. But if I were looking at one,
yeah,
I'm looking at it to get a better grasp of what could happen.
Yeah.
So if there are a gazillion trades going on, now there will be some trades.
Oh, absolutely.
Because there always are. Okay. But not a ridiculous amount of trades because there never is.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So I've got another one. Don't trust the mock draft that doesn't have. Why did it just escape my brain right now? That does not have
just so everybody knows. No, hold on. Just so everybody knows.
I lost it.
Hold on.
What was it?
Just so everybody knows that 2 days ago was Dave's birthday.
Yeah, I'm old now.
And so, he's catching up with me again. My birthday's a couple weeks before his. So, I'm older, extra older than him for, less than 2 weeks, 13 days. And then, boom, he's old again.
I'm old again.
Nice to see you're catching up.
I'm catching up. I remember what it is now. You ready?
Okay, go.
Okay. Do not, and thank you for the belated birthdays wishes. I appreciate that. Do not trust a mock draft that doesn't have Trevor Lawrence going first overall.
Okay. Yeah.
You know why? Because you're probably you're dealing with someone who's either trying to be cute or totally overthinking it.
Yep.
I wouldn't even go past that. Now, is there still the possibility that the world would be shocked and he doesn't go first overall? Yeah, but that would be stunning. So therefore, anyone who thinks they're going to try to call that, they're just trying. I mean, to me,
they're just trying to do it so that in case it would happen, it could be, oh, look, I got it right.
That came from my one statement on the preview last Thursday, where I said, don't be that guy that does 57 mock drafts. And then when in one of them, the Steelers take the player that you said, and you're like, I called this, I knew it. Don't. But that's the thing here. If that's
that's the same as the guy that fills out, 27, sheets for the NCAA tournament and then wins one. It's like, yes, I'm so good.
No, that wasn't my example Thursday night. My example Thursday night was the person that fills out, 30 NCAA brackets, and in one of them they pick a 15 to upset a 2, and then when it happens, you're like, I am the smartest man alive.
Yeah,
like, of course you're going to call the one big upset if you do enough brackets. Come on. So, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. But Honestly, that's what I'm saying. If you're dealing with someone, if you click on a mock draft, say, oh, I wonder who this deal is going to take. And the very first thing does not say Trevor Lawrence to the Jacksonville Jaguars, you are dealing with someone that you're dealing with a pot stirrer, if you know what I mean. Someone who wants to stir the pot and get things on. That's
I want to bring up a comment because I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. So AJ says, I read mock drafts to see who we should pick, not predict the pick.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one useful thing that mock drafts can be. If you read enough mock drafts, you might try to figure out, hey, there's a range of maybe 5 guys that could end up down in here, and we'll probably get one of these 5 guys.
Exactly. Because I'll be honest with you, there are some players out there that I don't know that much about that are towards the top of the draft. And the reason that I don't know anything about them is because they're not going below pick 15. Them dropping to 15 would be a really big deal. So I don't know as much about them, honestly. I don't know a ton about the tackle from Northwestern or the tackle from Oregon. Okay. Oh, Jerry Cherry. Oh, Jerry Cherry Band. I didn't even realize that was the date today because I said a pot stir on 420. That's a good one. But I mean, someone that's just trying to get everyone, they're a heel. They're doing, this isn't an insult. They're pulling a Mark Madden. He's the former wrestling guy. He does sports to be the heel. That's who he is. And he does it well, whether you like him or not. So you're going to find that guy that comes out. I mean, it's kind of like where we would have to do them on April Fools. He didn't do one this year because he just gave a recap of other stuff. But last year, Tony DeFeo came out with the Steelers having no first round draft pick. He found a way for them to trade up and have like 5 first round draft picks. That was his April Fool's article. Because that's what he kind of looks at, is that if you're going to take it, why not take it to extreme? Because honestly, there are people out there that have what they think is a serious mock draft that is really more of a joke, because they want to think outside the box and they want to show that they're on the edge, and really it just kind of makes it all fall apart. You agree with that?
I do.
Yeah. So I could totally see that happen. But I have another category, well, several categories, but they're kind of all dealing with one thing specifically. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and take our break here, and we're going to come back and we're going to do a couple more of these Don't Trust the Mock Draft That. But we're going to look specifically at ones that are dealing with the Steelers. And then we might have some time for some questions, I'm hoping, and then we'll do our big question at the end. So if you are listening on the audio side, go ahead and click on over to part 2. Everything else I have to say now is worthless. And if you're here on the if you're here on Facebook or YouTube, give us a few seconds and we'll be right back with part 2. And we're back, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, with the important stuff to listen to of the Scho Bro Show. This is part 2. I am behind the steel curtain, co-editor Dave Schofield, and with me, as always, Big Bro Rich. Rich, how are you?
I wanted to interrupt the end of part 1 there and say that, there are probably plenty of people out there that think that most of the stuff you have to say is useless.
Yeah. I have to ask, I'm sorry. I listened to you, but I could almost say Seattle has 2 losses, because we have some breaking news going on in Pittsburgh sports. Okay.
What?
Is it serious that the Pittsburgh Penguins enter the third period with a 6-0 lead against the New Jersey Devils, and they are trying to hold on at 7-6 with less than a minute left in the game? Did they seriously surrender 6 goals in the third period? I mean, I came home from my softball scrimmage and saw that it was 6-0 before the show started. I'm like, oh, this is great. I don't even have to pay attention. My goodness. That's quite concerning.
Now you got me,
You're like,
trying to figure out what the heck's going on here.
Yep. it's quite interesting. We'll see what happens. It's over now.
Over. Yeah.
7-6.
Yep. I've got end of third 7-6 pins.
Okay. Well, at least you still get 2 points. But my goodness, you should not have to. When you have a 6-0 lead going into the final period, you should not have to sweat it out and have to score another goal in order to have the win. 6 goals should be enough. So, all right, we can now move on. And we're getting some confirmation from the live chat. So, in case you guys are wondering, we're Pittsburgh sports fans. We even like to see the Pirates win when they. I don't know. I have to admit, I don't follow baseball.
See, you don't remember. I know it's funny. See, you don't remember the Pirates winning.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I do. And when I was in middle school was when they were.
No.
You mean winning?
Winning.
Yeah.
See, because you were only a couple years old. You don't remember. We are family.
Not to actually. I remember. Like
I do.
I mean, not enough to really know what was going on with it. So, yep. So,
I was only 5 years old, but I was so into baseball, even at 5 years old, that,
yeah, gotta love it. But I mean, it's Pittsburgh sports. So I'm still going to follow it.
Oh, sure.
But that's good to see that the Pens still pulled that one off. So let's get back to our topic. We were discussing, for those of you that are catching part 2 now, didn't catch part 1, you might want to go back and check that out. We were talking about don't trust mock drafts that. And we were talking about various things of, like the last one we talked about for a while was that they try to get cute and don't have Trevor Lawrence going first overall. Now I'm going to look at it from a Steelers perspective, and I'm going to call us out. Okay. If you're looking at the Steelers stuff, this one isn't as bad as some of the others. So this one's a little bit borderline. But I'm actually going to say this. Don't trust the Steelers. Don't trust the mock draft that doesn't have the Steelers addressing the offensive line until day 3.
Yeah.
I honestly, I would not trust that. And honestly, and that's why if you recall last week, I was so hesitant to click on the linebacker in round 3 because I'm like, I don't see any way that the Steelers come out of the first 2 days without any help on the offensive line. I just don't think it'll fall that way, and I don't think they should. Now, I don't think they should reach, and that was our problem with our mock draft, is that it felt like anything we would have taken in those spots would have been a reach. Yep. Like even guys that we thought would have been pretty good to be around in round 2. Like I can't even say his last name. I'll screw it up. So I'm just going to say the center out of Wisconsin Whitewater. Okay, the D3 school. A lot of people were like, yeah, that would be a nice 3rd round pick for the Steelers. He wasn't even there for the 2nd round. He was gone in our mock draft. So I didn't like how it was falling at all. Now, did I think we got some great steals in round 4 for their 2 picks to address 2 big needs on the offensive line?
Sure.
Absolutely. But because of that, I don't know that I would have trusted. If I was reading that mock draft and I would have hit round 3 and the Steelers still had to address the offensive line, I wouldn't have finished reading it because I would have said they don't know what they're talking about. What do you think?
Again, another one. Kind of agree.
Yeah.
I was not real happy with our draft last week too, trying to address those offensive line needs. But then when we got to round 4 and suddenly got to, then it was just like
who was it in the live chat that was like, I've run this mock so many times. Little will be there as your first 4th, and Hill will be there as your second 4th. I'm like, and we said, all right, we're going to trust you. And those were quick picks because when they were there, we just took them.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't trust any other mock draft that doesn't do that. When that is your biggest need, then that's something that I feel is going to happen. I'm going to do this one. I'm going to make it a little bit more. I'm going to make it less ridiculous to say that I still wouldn't trust it, but I'm going to use a specific example that's more ridiculous. Honestly, I wouldn't overly trust a mock draft that has the Steelers going defense their first 2 picks. I'm not saying they're not going to go defense at all. I just don't think they're going to do it with their top 2. I think at least one of their top two is going to have to go offense. But to go more specifically, don't trust the mock draft to have the Steelers going edge.
Yeah.
Because Michael talked about this as well, because we've conversed about it. That PFF mock draft that had the Steelers taking an edge rusher in the first round, I'm like, you know what? I only want them taking edge rusher in the first round if they're getting amazing value, because they don't have to address that position that high in the draft. But if there's someone they feel like they can't pass up, I am A-okay with that. But if they turn around and take an edge in round 2 after taking one in round 1, I mean, what are they going to do? Bench TJ Watt in order for them both to get playing, more than 50% of the playing time? I mean, think about what the team actually needs. And that specific mock draft, no joke, had the Steelers going edge. And yet no centers or no running backs had come off the board for their second round pick. All top 3 running backs were there. All the centers were there. And I'm like, you seriously think the Steelers would take a second edge rusher before they would take the top player at either one of those other positions? I just couldn't see it. So, I mean, they could it's not impossible for the Steelers to go defense. They could go corner linebacker or edge corner, or, those are really the only ones I've seen. What do you think it's possible they could go? I mean, what do you think the fan base would do if they go defense?
They will complain that we had a horrible running game last year and we didn't address either offensive line or running back in the first 2 rounds then.
Yeah. I mean, I've said it. Jeffrey said it. The running game is a 3-headed monster. It's scheme, running back, offensive line.
Yes.
That's the 3 things. The Steelers are already fixing the one in scheme. New offensive coordinator, different philosophy with running the ball.
We don't know necessarily. We don't know necessarily fixing it, but they're
addressing it. That's what I meant to say. They're addressing it.
There you go.
So we'll see if it's an improvement or not. I mean, they were 32nd last year. I'm hoping they have nowhere else to go but up. But I mean, honestly, and Jeffrey puts them in this order, the importance: scheme, offensive line, running back, which I could very well see. So that's why I'm fine if the Steelers go offensive line first. If they feel like they have to go running back in the first round in order to get someone who's that much of a difference maker, I'm not going to argue. But at the same time, for them to just completely ignore the offensive line and the running back position and just say, the defense is great. And yes, the Steelers still need to invest in their defense to keep it great. But if they ignore the other stuff, then I think they could be in trouble. So, anything else you want to say about that before? I think I've got 2. I've got 2 more.
Okay.
I've got 2 more.
Can you remember them?
Yes.
Okay. Just checking.
One of them is actually going to be the topic for, I'm hoping it's out tomorrow. Jeffrey, if you're listening, I hope you're not listening and finishing up your part of Steelers Vertex. For all I know, he's already has. I haven't checked. That we should have our Vertex article out tomorrow. We're actually looking at depth along the Steelers defensive line, because I'm going to say this: don't trust a mock draft that has a Steelers drafting a defensive tackle in the first 2 days. Honestly, I wouldn't even trust it if they haven't drafting it at all.
Yeah.
But my goodness, they had the Steelers drafting a defensive tackle in the 2nd round. My question is, why? Do you see that?
Because they're
coming?
Dumb, which is why I hate mock drafts.
Yeah. Well, and I included there was a tweet out today from Ian Rappaport that said he had, a draft expert person, he didn't say who they were, go on record with him saying this is probably the worst draft for defensive tackles they've ever seen. He says there's a couple that are first round worthy, but depth and everything else, it's just not there. And I'm like, it's not a strong draft for that anyway. And my point is the Steelers usually keep 6 defensive linemen. Last year they kept 7 all season. Now, guys were on the COVID list or injured or whatever, but they never had to add another one. They had the same 7 guys on the roster all year. All 7 of them are back.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if they can keep all 7, because that was a luxury to have 7 last year because of the way the roster falls. So you're already maybe having to get rid of one of the guys you kept last year. Then if you're going to draft another guy, they're going to bump someone else. You're just going to have to go and see, because if you looked last year after the draft, how Jeffrey Benedict, it was so funny because Jeff had to change the headline, but it was just like he was watching film of Carlos Davis in college, and he's just like about how awful it was. He actually tweeted out an apology to Carlos Davis to say, wow, as bad as what I felt your college film was, you put some great film up in your snaps this year. That he actually shows some. I mean, sometimes it takes a good coach. I'm between Coach Dunbar that has the defensive line and think the Steelers' assistant head coach is Coach Mitchell, who coached the defensive line for all those years. You've got some good coaches there for these guys, and I just don't see any reason. Once again, it kind of goes to show people that are out of touch with the Steelers. So if they already have the Steelers going defensive tackle, I just don't see it. What do you think?
Right. It just doesn't make any sense. We've already got the numbers there. Somebody earlier, I think it was Andrew Wilbar, was saying, hey, we're not even as a developmental player. No, we don't need that right now.
Well, the thing is, then you try to squeeze them on the practice squad maybe, or you're going to have to, they've been, are you going to give up on both Isaiah Buggs and Henry Mondo? Just to keep someone else who's a developmental guy, So I still say the Steelers had the best defensive line in the NFL last year. Defensive interior line, let alone with the edge rushers.
Right.
You had those guys were ranked in the top of the league with PFF Stephon Tuitt was the lowest ranked guy, and he had probably the best season of his career last year. So that's a great defensive line. So there is glaring needs other places. And you don't just completely draft for needs, because sometimes you draft for best player, but I don't see any way that falls out. So I have one more. And you're gonna take over on this one. You ready?
I hate mock drafts. Oh.
No. Don't trust a mock draft. That's it. That's all I got.
Yeah. Exactly. That's why I hate them.
It's a fun exercise. It's no different than fantasy football. Where you're doing something else that's for fun, that's really not realistic. And it's fun to try to predict them and everything else. But my goodness, it's like the perfect NCAA bracket. Okay. You should win $1 billion if you get even just the first round, if you could pull off every single pick correct. It's never going to happen. It's a fun exercise for those who enjoy it, and for those who don't enjoy it, like Big Bro, it's just a pain. So you can't trust any mock draft. You really can't. But it does give you information of names of players that could be available out there, and that's really what it's for. But don't trust it. Don't be like, I don't know, man. Todd McShay really knows his stuff more than anybody else. So I'm going to go with what he says. You know what? He doesn't probably even believe that that's exactly how it's going to shake down. So it is what it is. Look at them as a fun exercise. Take some information of players that could be there. If I go back and look at my mock draft Mondays from January, one of them was a tackle that the Steelers could possibly take in the 3rd round from Northern Iowa. And he was mocked to the Steelers in the 1st round in January. Things change. You never know how it's going to work. But that's what makes the draft itself so much fun, because you take the word mock out of it.
That's right.
It's no longer a mock, and this is the real deal. And you can't get so far into it and realize it's not working out and hit and close out your tab and start a new one. It just doesn't work that way.
I sit here and say, I hate mock drafts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I also sit here and say, I love the real draft.
Oh, I know. It's great. And honestly, the best thing is when someone's taken and you're like, wow, this player was mocked in the second round and they just went number 11. Or, wow, this person was mocked to go with the top 10 and they're still available at 18. Things like that. It's good.
Yes.
It's for fun comparison the night of the draft, but you're just not counting on it. I still would not be shocked if the Steelers' first round pick ends up being a player that I never covered in Mock Draft Monday since January. I mean, think about it. I've done every Monday since the middle of January. I've done Mock Draft Monday, and it could still be. Last year, it was a lot harder last year because it was a second round pick. Chase Claypool was never one of the ones that I did for that. So it's there's still that chance that it could be something crazy. So anything else you want to say before I hit the super chat?
Nope. Get it.
Okay. Well, this is Kathy Forrid. I can get her name right because I remember she said it rhymes with horrid. Kathy Forrid puts $5 into the tip jar, and she says, got Ezra's bold prediction. Draft RB first, play January football. Mark to the tape. So she has that. That she remembers what she's going to say. Like I said, it's got to work in combination. If you get a running back and you don't address the offensive line, well, it doesn't matter how great they are, they're going to struggle. And if you address the offensive line and then still put the same set of backs back there, it's nothing that's going to say that they're going to miraculously just be great. Here's something that was brought up on the Slack channel today. Or the staff. What this draft will tell us, if you look at the type of players the players draft, particularly on offense, next week, you're going to learn so much more about their philosophy going forward.
Yeah.
You are. I mean, if they draft a tackle in the first 2 days, and that tackle is a mauling run blocker, then that's going to tell you something. If they draft a tackle that's a finesse pass blocker, that's going to tell you something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The kind of guys that they kind of are revamping their roster with here is going to kind of tell you the direction that they're going. Because KT Smith said it today. That's Chisap. Cliff Harris is still a punk. He said, he's like, I don't know what to expect with this offense because I don't know how Ben and Canada fit together. So it's going to be real interesting to see what kind of players they draft on offense to see what direction they're going. It's great. So can't wait till next Thursday.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's going to lead to a lot to talk about as the draft's going on, as the Steelers start making some of those picks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're going to have extra to talk about because of, ooh, hey, the Steelers did this. Maybe they're thinking that is, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. It'll be real interesting. And then you've got those big question mark players. And all it takes is one team picking in the right spot to change everything. I'm thinking of a player like Landon Dickerson, the center from Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he has some seriously great tape out there, but he also has a lot of injury flags. All it takes is one team picking in the right position that isn't concerned with the injury history, and he's a first round pick, but if that team's not out there, how far does he fall? Is he in the third round?
Right. Same
with the center from Wisconsin Whitewater, which people were telling me how to pronounce it. Now I can't even remember. I think it's like Miners. I mean, it's not spelled like miners, isn't like someone who goes into a mine, but it's pronounced like miners. Coming from a D3 program, is he going to go high, or are teams going to be leery of that? But it only takes one team that wants him, or three teams that want him and they're afraid someone else is going to get him first and they're fighting over him, and then he goes even higher, or he falls. These are the kinds of interesting storylines that we'll end up with, don't you think?
I do. I believe that, again, that's what makes the real draft fun.
Yeah. Yep. And I really like it. And I mean, I know some people in the live chat are more this way. And this is something like you can't stand mock drafts. You don't like mock drafts. You know, yeah, I've said before, my biggest pet peeve is people who say the Steelers have to do this in the first round. No, they don't. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to draft a running back. They don't have to draft a specific running back. You know, some people think that if all the running backs are there, it has to be this one. That might not be the guy they like for what they're going to do. It might be someone else, you know, but I've said it a lot of times. If there's, you know, my mock draft Monday was Creed Humphrey this past week, the center from Oklahoma. Some people are like, that's a reach there. That's a huge reach. I'm like, that's not a reach there. If the Steelers feel like that's the guy that's going to get the job done at that position. Okay. Right. Now that might be and honestly, to me, sometimes you're like, oh, you don't want to just have to draft for need. That's how you get Artie Burns. I agree. But you know what? A pick that's great in the first round might have been a pick that you feel was a reach if one other player would still be on the roster. You know, if Ben Roethlisberger would have hung it up and the Steelers took a quarterback, you're not thinking that's a reach. But if Ben Roethlisberger is back and they take a quarterback at 24 without one of them falling, then you're thinking that's a reach. You know, you might think it's if Marquise Pouncey doesn't retire and they take a center in the first round, you might think that's a reach, but now you might not, based on severe need. But drafting specifically for need is also dangerous. I always like to say, if the Steelers are in love with someone enough to take them at that point, then I'm going to really look at their upside, because drafting at 24 in this year's draft, I don't think, I mean, you're going to have something good available for something that'll benefit the Steelers this year. That's just my opinion. You think so?
No, there won't be anything there for the Steelers.
No, nothing for the Steelers.
Yeah.
You know, and like we said, so many people say there could be so much there that trading back is a good option, but you got to have someone who wants to trade back. So, quick question for you. I'm sorry I talked too much, and we're going to
you have quick question.
Yeah,
fire away.
Does how much you trust the Steelers pick depend on what position it is?
No.
So if they took a cornerback in round one, you would trust that just as much as if they took a running back?
Yes.
Okay. I just didn't know of past history. You know, like, honestly, anytime the Steelers draft a wide receiver, I trust it more than other picks, because I'm like, if they wanted this receiver, then this receiver is probably going to be pretty good based on how they do it. So I know a lot of people, if they draft a corner in the first round, they might be a little bit leery, but just based on history in the position. So that's why I asked. So yeah. So any chance you have a good final question tonight? I forgot to ask you earlier. So
no, because right now the only thing I'd ask about is something to do with, you know,
how much you hate mock drafts. I thought you were going to say how much you hate mock drafts.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm sitting here thinking quick to see if I have anything, but no, I do not.
Yeah.
You have one ready anyway. So,
oh no, I don't. Of course I don't. I was wanting to be done 10 minutes sooner so we could ask some questions in the live chat, and then I could kind of pick a good one.
Could think about it. You talked too long. See, if you let me know ahead of time you didn't have one, or you were doing all that long-winded talking, I'd have had plenty of time to think of a question.
Oh yeah, exactly. So,
but
it's fine.
You missed
every question.
You asked me the question, and that should have been the big question, because it could be answered with yes or no.
Well, then let's do it. No, we can still do it because I didn't see everything. Do you? No, because I don't like how we phrased it. I don't like.
Yeah,
this is you and I talking right now. Let's throw that out of here. Oh, throw that out of here. I mean, every time I get asked a question, I'm like, oh wait, I already asked that one in the past. Like we already asked about what position would you not want the Steelers to draft in the first round. We asked that one weeks ago. So, but we do have one more show before the draft. We really do, and I know what next week's question is going to be. I already have it. But I don't want to jump the gun. I don't want to jump the gun. Okay. So I'm just going to, this is going to be a simple, easy question. Okay. And this doesn't have to be first round. This could be in any round. And this is it. If you hear me typing loud, that's because I want to type it in. Do the Steelers, and you're going to answer this first, Rich, before I put it up there. Do the Steelers make a trade in this year's draft?
Oh, that's actually a pretty good one.
At any point, do they make a trade? Don't answer it yet in the live chat until I bring it up there, because I'm going to let Rich answer first.
No.
Okay.
I don't think they do. I'm going to say no.
Hold pat, 8 picks.
Yeah. But I think it will be one of those where they maybe explore it, but don't end up not feeling that they're getting something that would make them want to trade a pick, either to move up or back.
Or up.
You know what I mean? They're not seeing the value they would like to get.
Yep.
For trading. So I think they stand pat.
Yep. I have put the question in the live chat, so now I can look at it. So do the Steelers make a trade in this year's draft? Up, back, first round, 7th round, anywhere in between. Okay. Andrew Obar says, hope so with the trade. I hope so. Okay. Robert says, yes, trade down in the first. Mark says, yes, if there's no runner, no running back. George says no. Okay. More often than not, the Steelers don't, but they have. But yeah. Okay. Steeler Chick 46 says, yes, move up in the second. I could see that.
Yeah.
I could see them. Honestly, whether it be moving their first round pick back some to gain another second or doing something, I could see a second or early 3rd round pick coming back. If they could do something to get another pick there, I could see them. I could see that. WHH says yes. Says we have extra picks next season to play with this trade bait. Unofficially, if you're talking about comp picks, and right now it's 2 of them. Steelers, Pittsburgh says only if we can get a punter. There you go, Jefferson Hartman. So, okay. Ryan Kellerman says, if anything, we trade back to gain picks. Do you think the Steelers need more than 8 picks? I think we asked that once before. I don't know that they need more than 8. I've said if
they really do.
I say if you're going to trade back, do what you did the last time you trade back in 2001. They traded back 3 spots and got Casey Hampton. And then they used, I'd say the pick that they picked up, one of the 2 picks they picked up, the 4th rounder, but technically it was their own pick, although they were back-to-back picks at 111, 112, to then trade up in the 2nd round to get Kendrell Bell.
Right.
So if you're going to move back at one point, move up at another spot if you can't do it all in one move. Yep. Bert says, yes, for the RBs, that's the only reason. He says to trade up for a running back. Okay. AJ says he hopes so. He's 50-50. Okay. Ryan O'Toole, I like this one. Yes, in a later round. They're going to trade in a later round, whether it be up or back. I can see that. Okay. Jack Miller says no. Stacy says nope.
Okay. Solarverse 6 says yes, up in the second, to trade up in the second. That threw me off. He has a different profile pick. Okay. Kelly says later if they do. Okay. Doc Holliday says trade down. Jack Miller says lots of holes. So I guess he means to trade and get more picks. Okay. Tyler W says nope. Okay. Doc Holliday, here's the rest of it. He says to gain more picks. Okay. Donald Nolan, he says trade down from 24 to get multiple picks in the top 100. That would be the best case scenario. If someone else wants you to, wants to do it.
Right.
Because you got to have a trade partner. Too many people are like, oh, just trade. I don't want to do it. Right?
Right.
Yeah. What's the name again? Never Ender, right? Did I get it right?
Thank you.
Yes.
You got it right.
Wouldn't mind a trade down, but such a bummer not to be watching a selection on draft night. I actually had an article this morning about this, about do the Steelers, is there value in having a selection in every round of the draft? Because, just people throwing out different things saying, oh, well, if the Steelers traded back and they could get an extra second round pick, maybe they get another fifth round pick since they don't have one in the fifth round. And then someone's like, who cares about having one in every round? And then the more I thought about it, I'm like, well, there is some value to it and not having a large gap without having a pick, but not that much. I actually threw out the ridiculous notion of someone wanting to give the Steelers a fourth. And they're like, no, we've already got 2 4th round picks. We don't have a 5th round pick. Why don't you give us your 5th? That's not going to happen. So I'm trying to say, Garrett says they don't, but I do. Is that answering the question? I'm trying to remember. Some of these are people having their own conversations. So, I don't know. Have you seen anything new? Here's Kathy. She says down maybe, but probably no trade. Okay. Russ, let's see if I understand this. He says, if we have to trade up for a running back in the first, if we don't get a running back, trade down in the second to move up from the 55th pick. Okay. I could see that, because if you don't get like one of your main, I know what he's saying. I know exactly what he's saying, that you could maybe get the third best running back in the second round, but not at 55. If 1 and 2 aren't there in the first round. I know exactly what he's saying. Okay. CD says, could trade back in the second, grab your cornerback, running back, and center in round 2. We could see. Yeah. Okay. So that was a lot of fun tonight. A lot of people having more conversations as we go. I didn't answer the question. I'm going to say that the Steelers do make a trade in this draft. It's just not going to be a major one. I think they could maybe, someone might want to move up in the 6th round, and the Steelers swap it out to pick up another 6th rounder next year or something, something crazy like that. I don't know. If a trade happens, and watch it be totally wrong, watch them make lots of moves for day 1 and 2, which isn't beyond the realm of possibility. Rich, anything you want to say here before we get rolling?
I need to ask a favor.
Okay.
Next week, can we not talk about mock drafts?
Yeah. No, next week we're going to talk about the real deal. We're going to talk about the real deal draft. We're going to talk about some of our expectations with that, our anticipations, various different things, and we'll see what changes between now and next week of what else we can talk about. But it's mock draft season. They're ramping up. Everyone's doing them. But yeah, don't put too much. It's a fun exercise, but to think any one mock is going to be right is the same as trying to, like we say, any one NCAA bracket being right.
Right.
But doesn't mean it's not fun filling out a bracket. So we'll see what happens when the real thing comes. Okay. Make sure you are listening to all the podcasts. I can't remember who they have tomorrow night on the curtain call, but they have another guest from a college that covers a college team. I just can't remember which team it is. And we still have our regular stuff rolling through, but when it comes to our draft coverage, make sure you are ready for our draft coverage, because we will be coming to you. We're not going to have next week. We won't have a regular Steelers preview. We won't have a Tony show. We won't have a touchdown under because it's going to be replaced with draft shows. We're going to be going on YouTube 5 to 10 minutes after each pick, with the exception of the second picks in the 4th round and the 7th round. Chances are we're going to be on the air during those picks because we'll still be on from the one before. Also, if you're listening on the audio side, make sure you're ready. We plan to have an audio podcast, breaking news, covering some brief basic information about each one of the Steelers picks. It'll be out extremely shortly after the pick is made. We're talking 5 to 10 minutes. With what we normally do as a breaking news podcast, I'll probably be doing a lot of those. Make sure if you listen on the audio side, check those out. If you're like, oh, it's 10:15, 10:30 on Thursday night, I wonder, if there's a breakdown of the Steelers draft pick. There it is. So it's there for the audio. We'll be on the YouTube and Facebook at those times. Lots of coverage. And of course, BehindTheSteelCurtain.com is your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. And during the draft time, it really is your nonstop shop because we'll have a lot of coverage for that. Even bringing Big Bro back out for articles since the regular season. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see how it works out. It's all hands on deck when it comes to the draft. So
that's right.
We get one more show before the draft. So next week we're really going to narrow it down and say, what are the Steelers going to do? How's it going to work out? We'll be back to talk to you then. Rich, what do you think of that?
Can't wait.